What is going on, my future AMP holders? Today we'll be covering the general section of the airframe and power plant exam. First, we'll be going over the fluid lines and fittings. So, here we go. What is the color of an AN steel flare tube fitting? Black. A scratch or nick in aluminum tubing can be repaired provided it does not appear in the heel of a bend. The term cold flow is generally associated with impressions left in natural or synthetic rubber hose material. During installation, military standard flareless fittings are normally tightened by turning the nut a specified amount unless the manufacturer lists torque values. When a Teflon hose has been in service for a time, what condition may have occurred and or what precautions should be taken when it is temporarily removed from the aircraft? The hose may have developed a set or have been manufactured with a preset shape and must be supported to maintain its shape. When coupling nut, which coupling nut should be selected for use with 1/2 inch aluminum oil lines, which are to be assembled using flare tube ends and standard AN nuts, sleeves, and fittings. AN-818-8. The primary purpose of providing suitable bends in fluid and pneumatic metal tubing runs is to prevent excessive stress on the tubing. If a flared tube coupling nut is over tightened, where is the tube most likely to be weakened/damaged? At the sleeve fitting nut or tube flare. In most aircraft hydraulic systems, 2Ps tube connectors consisting of a sleeve and a nut are used when the tubing flare is required. The use of this type connector eliminates the possibility of reducing the flare thickness by wiping or ironing during the tightening process. A certain amount of slack must be left in the flexible hose during installation because, when under pressure, it contracts in length and expands in diameter. Which of the following tools is best to use when cutting soft aluminum tubing? Hand-operated wheel-type tubing cutter. True or false? Number 1. Bonded clamps are used for support when installing metal tubing. Number 2. Unbonded clamps are used for support when installing wiring. Regarding the above statements, both 1 and number 2 are true. Which of the following statements is true regarding minimum allowed bend radii for 1.5 inches OD or less aluminum alloy and steel tubing of the same size? The minimum radius for steel is greater than for aluminum. Which of the following hose materials are compatible with phosphate ester based hydraulic fluids? Butyl and Teflon. Which of the following statement is/are correct in reference to flare fittings? Number 1. AN fittings have an identifying shoulder between the end of the threads and flare cone. Number 2. HC and AN fittings are considered identical except for material composition and identifying colors. Number 3. AN fittings are generally interchangeable with AC fittings of compatible material composition. Only number 1 is true. Rolling type flaring tools are used to flare XX and X tubing. Soft copper, aluminum, and brass. Excuse me. In the metal tubing installation, tension is undesirable because pressurization will cause it to expand and shift. Flexible lines must be installed with a slack of 5 to 8% of the length. A gas or fluid line marked with the letters PHDAN is used to carry a hazardous substance. Which statement is true regarding the variety of symbols utilized on identifying color code bands that are currently used on aircraft plumbing lines? Symbols are always black against a white background, regardless of line content. Flexible hose used in aircraft system is classified in size according to the inside diameter. Excessive stress on fluid or pneumatic metal tubing caused by expansion and contraction due to temperature change can be best avoided by providing bend in the tubing. Hydraulic tubing, which is damaged in a localized area to which an extent the repair is necessary, may be repaired by cutting out the damaged area and utilizing a swaged tube fitting to join the tube ends. A 3/8 inch aircraft high pressure flexible hose, as compared to a 3/8 inch metal tubing used in the same system, will have equivalent flow characteristics. The maximum distance between end fittings to which the straight hose assembly is to be connected is 50 inches. The minimum hose length to make such a connection should be 52.5 inch. When installing bonded clamps to support metal tubing, remove paint or anodizing from tube at clamp location. When installing a castle nut and nut castellation does not align with the cotter pin hole in the bolt within the torque range, the acceptable practice is to change the nut or washer and try again. Which tubings have the characteristics high strength abrasion resistance necessary for use in a high pressure 3000 psi hydraulic system for operation of landing gear and flaps? Corrosion resistant steel annealed or 1/4. The material specifications for a certain aircraft require that a replacement oil line be fabricated from 3/4 an inch 0.072 5052 Tech 0 aluminum alloy tubing. What is the inside dimension of this tubing? 0.606 inch. Scratches or nicks on the straight portion of aluminum alloy tubing may be repaired if they are no deeper than 10% of the wall thickness. When flaring aluminum tubing for use with AM fittings, the flare angle must be 37 degrees. From the following sequences of steps, indicate the proper order you will use to make a single flare on a piece of tubing. 1. Place the tube in the proper size hole in the flaring block. Tube. Project the end of the tube slightly from the top of the flaring tool, about the thickness of a dime. 3. Slip the fitting nut and sleeve on the tube. 4. Strike the plunger several light blows with a lightweight hammer or mallet and turn the plunger 1/2 turn after each blow. 5. Tighten the clam bar securely to prevent slippage. 6. Center the plunger or flaring pin over the tube. The answer for this for the order will be 3, 1, 6, 2, 5, and 4. Metal tubing fluid lines are sized by wall thickness and outside diameter in 1/16-inch increments. What is an advantage of a double flare on aluminum? More resistant to damage when the joint is tightened. Which statement is true regarding flattening of tubing in bends? The small diameter of the flattened portion must not be less than 75% of the original outside diameter. Alright, that concludes the fluid lines and fittings portion of the general section of the airframe power plant license. Thank you, and tune in for the next one.